I would like to introduce our chair for today, who is Konrad Deiters, who is international M&A leader for Mercer. And he has more than 17 years experience in business strategy and M&A business development, and has worked with multinational companies all around the world on a variety of M&A and HR issues. And his expertise involves, among many things, but the future of work, which the future of work is now, obviously, the workforce, HR digitization, HR strategy, M&A, rewards, finance, and culture change, all these things which have been accelerated this year. So with that, I'd like to welcome Konrad.
Thanks, Robert, for introducing me. I'm very happy to be with you guys today. We actually have a very interesting day one agenda for the day. You probably all have seen it, but let me quickly summarize. I won't go through all of the details, what expects all of us today. We will have sessions about project management over the course of the integration, Center of Excellence. This is going to be our session after my introduction and short presentation. Then we're going to hear about reverse integration, people and change management. This is also very interesting to hear the perspective from Sebastian on this one. Then marketing and branding through mergers and acquisitions. That's also an exciting topic. Then Poland. We're going to talk about a comprehensive divestment strategy in Orange, Poland. That's very interesting as well. Then we have a session on IT. And I heard that this is going to be very pragmatic, not too much into tech details, but very, very well prepared. And then we have, how to prepare and manage transformation, a transformational deal. And then we get to the end at 5:30. So this is just insights into the agenda. So great compilation of themes and topics. What I will do is right now, I will give probably 15 to 20 minutes presentation on deal value, and in particularly how culture plays a pivotal role certainly among many other things over the course of an integration of a transaction. And if I may share my screen, it's all about mitigating, but certainly on the other hand, creating deal value. And what expects you in the end of my talk is, I would say a formula as to how you can sell internally, the value of a project to finance. Because I'm doing M&A in a full-time role since 2007, and whenever culture is put on the agenda, it's fluffy, it's up in the air, it's difficult to quantify, and this expects you on the last slide. But we still have a couple of slides to go. People aspects, key success factor in a transaction. On the other hand, it could also contribute to failure. And we have done, really various researches on it, and you see at the bottom as to where all of these numbers are coming from. And let's start with leaders, business leaders. How do they rate the ability of their organization to mitigate people risks? In terms of, we are very effective, and only one in three is actually confirming this. So what does this mean? A lot of transactions fail, the 60 to 85%. If you look at McKinsey, Boston, the auditor pages, you always get numbers in this corridor. Probably 54 because of restructuring. Those initiatives fail. And then we're going to talk about culture in particularly in a second, re-engineering, business expansion. So many kind of initiatives, large programs in that area fail. We all know this, but again, I attended yesterday also partly the conference. There was a lot of discussions around culture. Culture always comes back, even if you run workshops with heads of corporate development. Culture is always in their minds, and they probably relate it more to a lacking communication and probably also change management. But again, according to our research, 30% of transactions fail because of culture. So it's not the 60 to 85%, but 30% of deals are getting into difficult situations because of differences in culture, because this is not being dealt with. And 67% of all of the transactions, of all of the contributors to our study, confirmed that there was a delay in realization of the value because of culture issues, meaning that all of their project plans that have been put together by the Integration Management Office, came in too late, produced financial results by far too late. So, and that gets us to the 81% of culture initiatives fail if there are any culture initiatives. So that's the starter. And this is also something that you probably are familiar with, that, whenever a deal is announced or even getting then, closer to closing, there's always a dip in return. And it takes organizations a while to actually realize the expected return. And in many, having discussed the numbers beforehand on the first slide, the expected return in many instances won't be reached. Why? Productivity loss, you can see it here, customer disruption, flight of key talent, and that all contributing to delayed synergies. And 43%, as you can see here, experienced culture issues causing a delay in close or have an impact even earlier on to purchase price if the acquiring partner is looking at differences in culture already at an earlier stage. What is contributing to culture change is, according to our latest survey, how leaders behave, the say-do, right, discrepancy. And it has been mentioned as the number one driver of organizational culture. Let's take a look at, again, let's frame it as to where we see value creation. If you look at this picture here, it's actually the Congruence Model. It's a model that depicts the areas that need to be very congruent to each other, and that gets organizations to work effectively and efficiently. It's all about organizational effectiveness. So you have certainly the input. If you look at the transaction, you could also say, here you put the business strategy, but in our case here, we talk about the deal strategy, the deal thesis, and they certainly want in the end reach a certain deal value, revenue and cost synergies, and improve capabilities of the organization. And what does the organization consists of? Certainly the former organization, systems, policies, organizational structures, and so on. This is the formal piece. Then we have processes and systems. We have people in the organization, where they need to certainly live up to the values of the organizations. They need to have the skills in order to actually live up and be capable of reaching business targets in the end. At the bottom here, you see the informal organization. Networks in the organization that you cannot see in the organizational chart. It's all about informal connection. So you have up here, you have rewards. Probably you saw that reporting structures and reward systems to support desired behaviors in the organization. This is the driver of the desired culture, among many other things. But here, this is actually all about role models, all about behaviors, all about the operating environment. And this is where culture sits, right? Where we see informal organization here. However, in reality, a lot of work is done here, as well as here, and from a formal organization, org design, integration work, and so on, and the people side. Not so much focus is given on the informal organization, as well as processes and systems in preparation for day one, and also in the PMI phase. Probably at a later stage this needs to be done, but this is where we see a little bit of a dilemma, that not all of the 4 elements are being taken into consideration early on in PMI. So how are we going to run this place? How are we realizing expected deal value? This is, from our perspective, actually where we bring in culture. Culture you see in the middle, being surrounded by operating environment and talent and people in the organization, the workforce, because here the value is created to achieve the expected business results given the business strategy of an organization. And let me direct your attention to those 3 circles down here. So if you look at the expected outcomes that you see here on the right-hand side, we always go backwards and say, okay, we know the outcomes of the organization. What are the drivers an organization needs to have in place in order to direct, engage behaviors that help to get to the expected outcomes? So that's the overarching embedment of culture in our model. And then I know we're going to have an excursion on change management later on, but this is how we see the actually behavioral momentum. I wouldn't say cultural momentum, but how people behave whenever they hear that there is going to be a change in their environment given a transaction, an acquisition or divestiture. In the beginning, it's all rational. Okay, I understand what's happening here. However, then the emotional side kicks in. It's do we really feel well about this, what's going on? And then the next step would be, if you get to the right levers, that you create some desire in the workforce to explore the opportunities of this, to make it more tangible. And in the end, this is the most difficult and complex stage, that change and all of what's happening going on. I'm very clear about rationally, emotionally, I develop the right emotions. I feel well taken care of in this kind of situation. Then I want to explore more. Then it's getting more tangible, and in the end, it's a natural change that certainly needs to be reached. It's very difficult. It takes a long time, and this is the message here, that whenever a change is happening in the organization, and we all know this, it takes a long time to embed the change, to really make it natural. So this is, I won't talk too lengthy about this. This is whenever we go for a larger scale cultural, let's call it cultural transformation, which is not only the assessment in the beginning of the differences in organization, that gets you in the end to kind of cultural differences, then the target culture. Workshop with leadership to align the 2 organizations from the kind of asset that has been acquired or share that has been acquired, and the acquirer sit together, create an aspiration and a culture blueprint for the organization. And the upper part is more about leadership and preparation, prep work, whereas here it's getting really practical. The blueprint is converted into a story. Think about the page I presented beforehand, to really make it for people tangible, desirable, in the end natural. And then it continues here to really be clear for everybody, sorry for that, what needs to be changed, and to get to the natural change that the mindset of people actually are aligned of both organizations. This takes some time between, I would say, not only 6 months. The largest project we are working on is now a 3-year horizon to really make the change happen. And you get this presentation if you want to take a look at it again. It's all about define, design, and implement, and implementation is probably the most fruitful contribution to it, because leadership alignment workshops, fine. But again, what needs to happen to really embed the change? And this is just a recommendation. I know that you have done this probably in many instances beforehand, but this is just the overview on what potentially can be done. And now let's get to the last actually slide, which is the ROI calculation of culture. It took quite some time to pull this together, but let me quickly take you through it. So you have a description on the right-hand side, and here in the chart you can easily follow. So this transaction has a synergy target of 300 million. You see here on the right-hand side, 100 million revenue synergies and 200 million cost synergies. Together, 300 million. So that's the baseline. Then if we look at the potential opportunity, how do we get there? The potential opportunity equals or is total synergy target minus the probability to reach synergies. And you have here the probability of the synergy target, and you see that here how this is being calculated. It's a conservative calculation. So the probability that synergy targets are being reached, we assume an 11% revenue synergy, not the 100%, but only 11%, and 54 cost synergies. That gets us to the 190. So if you deduct from the 300 million, the probability, the probabilized, difficult to pronounce, value from the total target, then you get to the 181. We talked about that. The 54 is the culture opportunity. How do we get to the culture opportunity? We all heard and probably are clear that not 100% of transactions fail because of culture. We are, according to our research, it's 30% of transactions, and the 30% of the potential opportunity, which is here, 181, gets us to the 54.3 million. And then we bring it further down to the 35.7, which is, as you can see here, the probability of culture synergies, right? And then we have, and this is calculated, it's 30% of the probability of, hang on a second, of the culture opportunity. And, finally, if you look at this number, this is the figure you can actually use, the 10.8 million. It's in essence the probability of the culture benefit to the transaction. So whatever money you put in, whatever time you invest, your contribution can be, again, very conservatively calculated out of the culture opportunity, the 54 million. We only assume 20% because according to research, only 20% of culture initiatives succeed. And then we bring it down to 10.8 million. So that's a model that you can use, you can refine in order to sell it to corporate finance, that they embed a budget in the integration budget, actually, that they give monies for that. And looking at this overall, culture can represent a value of 4% of total synergy targets. So again, this is a recommendation as to how you can do it. I've been looking a long time for this, and I'm actually very happy to now have it at hand. So this is a quote from Dow DuPont. from the CEO that human capital side is the most important part of this merger. That was a quote after a large transaction has been made. And now, if you have any questions, we can start the Q&A process.
Thank you very much. We have a comment and a first question. The comment is from Melanie from Novartis. Thank you for sharing these insights. I do not have a question, but just wanted to say that listening to you makes me even more grateful to work for an organization where culture is of such a high importance and where culture aspiration is now the basis of a new code of ethics. This cannot be reinforced enough.
Yeah, thank you very much. No, I'm very happy to hear this, very grateful for the positive feedback. And I know that you guys are doing really a lot around this. So no, thank you very much. Excellent.
We have two questions, both from Accenture, one from Delphine. Good morning. Could you give examples of metrics used to measure here?
Actually, that's a really good question. You know, you always have, whenever you work in human resources, you have plenty KPIs. It could be if you look at an organization from a standalone perspective, looking at the contribution of culture. It has linkages to branding. We're going to hear later on more about branding. Could be time to hire, could be attrition and retention as well. But again, looking at a transaction per se, there is plenty of KPIs you can use here, and it's probably too lengthy to talk about all of them in detail. But we can probably meet later on and speed date if you like, and then we can have a more detailed conversation on this. I would have had a slide on KPIs, but then I took it out because then the presentation probably takes too long. But again, probably the most important KPI over the course of an integration is, I talked about timelines will be met, and whenever timelines will be extended, then this shows that people are not working together very, very well, as well as leadership departure. Can you make sure with the surrounding, next to all of the nice retention packages, that the top leaders that are really, really most important for the integration process, that they stay on board? But again, we can keep on going later on if you like.
We have a comment from Teresa from Danfoss that she would love to see the slide on the KPIs. So maybe something can be posted on the handouts later on.
Very good. So I will actually add it to the pages again, and then you will find it in on the website.
Great. And other question from Catherine from Accenture. Good morning. Could you please provide more details on how you size the culture opportunities in the B case?
In which case?
B case.
What is meant by B case? I'm actually not clear about the question.
Business case.
Okay. Let's go back to the slides. So that's actually also a very good clarifying question. So I need to share. So it all starts with the overall synergy target, right? And then if you look here, we at first kind of evaluate the risk that the overall synergy target won't be met, which gets us to the 119. And then when we talk about the culture opportunity, the 54, we say it's 30% of the potential opportunity, which you see here. This is the potential opportunity, 181. Then we actually put the 30% of deals that fail because of culture. That's the relativity here. Hopefully this answers your question. But you can always go back or actually reach out to me today or even after the conference. I'm very happy to take you further down.
Okay, and a question from Thomas Bukar. If the culture part of value creation is presented as only 4%, how can it be brought up to the priority list of a integration management office if 96% is generated by something else?
Okay, again, this is a very conservative, calculation. If you invested 2 million, for instance, we can calculate a return on investment of 443%. This is the first eyebrow raiser. But again, if it's only 4%, we talk about it's actually a good consideration. But again, can they live without the 4% or 10%? If we talk about 10%, it's very conservatively calculated, as I mentioned. If you can bring it up to 10%, it's never going to be 100%. I also have been inclined to talk about, 67% of transactions fail because of culture. That's not true, because all of the other work streams are doing a fantastic job too. But again, if you have to bring it in relation to how many work streams are working on the production of value, of the value that has been predicted, which is in many cases not reached. So it's one of the elements that contribute to value creation in the end. So this is how I would tackle it. It's one of 5, 10, 15, 20 elements that get you to, never gets you to 100%, or in rare cases to 100%. But if you don't have this, it can actually create a lot of mismatch.
Excellent. And there's also a comment from Karina from For Futuring that would love to also see the KPIs, particularly with what can be tracked and hopefully actively managed and acted upon during the integration.
Yeah, which gives you a proactive, actually measurement opportunity, but also can be included in project planning over the course of the PMI divestiture program. Actually, now I promise I will add it to the slide deck and make it available via Robert on the internet pages of Merger Integration Forum.
Excellent. Unless there's any final quick questions, so we stay on schedule, let me be the first to thank you for a great keynote presentation this morning. You're getting a lot of applause here already, so thank you very much on behalf of the audience. And we're off to a great start. Someone I think may be raising their hand. Nope. Okay. Thank you again. We will reconvene at 10:15 for the next session. So we have a quick 10-minute break, so you can grab a coffee and meet in the lounge, and we're back at 10:15 for the next session. Thank you again, and thank you, Konrad.
You're welcome. See you soon.